That hype train in Lubbock, Texas isn't going anywhere.
You are Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin, your daily podcast on all things college football. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Locked On College Football. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin, and thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day and your daily source to stay up to date with the biggest stories in this, the greatest sport on planet Earth. USC just won't stop picking up wins on the trail. Is Justin Wilcox on the hot seat in Berkeley to create another surprise coaching vacancy in the Bay Area? That's all getting discussed on today's show, which is brought to you by our friends over at TurboTax. Ready for stress-free taxes and the most money back guaranteed? Head over to TurboTax.com today and get matched with your expert. So previously, the number one player in the transfer portal came about because of a firing at Stanford, and David Bailey, an edge player going into his fourth year, who if he returned to the ACC would have more pressures than anybody generated in the conference. Former highly rated blue chip guy, Chris Level of Locked On Texas Tech is here because he's going to be a Red Raider. And this, to me, Chris, Texas Tech is catapulted into being the betting favorite now to win the Big 12 after this move. The impact here cannot be overstated in my view. I think this is slowly morphing into a championship season or bust in the Big 12 for Texas Tech.
Yeah, Spencer, and one is because the position that David Bailey plays, I mean, these are premium positions, and he's a force multiplier in that everything around him instantly becomes better because of his skill set. And thank you to Andrew Luck for making a tough call and getting rid of Coach Taylor, because that's why we're here. I mean, nobody was envisioning this. You're not, hey, waiting for David Bailey to get into the portal. It's just this weird set of dynamics, and Texas Tech's process, well-resourced. I think they were able to, when somebody gets in, they're able to act very, very quickly and put their best foot forward. And he was in Lubbock on a visit shortly after he got into the portal. And I think he liked it. It came down to Texas and UCLA and the Red Raiders. But, you know, and you go look up at what Romello Height did at Georgia Tech and various other institutions and what he was thought of from a pressure player. Now you pair Bailey and Height together on the edges, and it makes you want to dare to dream a little bit on. And this has been an Achilles heel for the Red Raiders, man. It's just you can't ever put enough pressure on the opposing quarterback, and so now you've got two of the better ones in the country, I would say. And again, it doesn't guarantee you anything. You've got to go do it. You've got to gel and all the chemistry stuff, but yeah, you've done well in free agency, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and the reason I see this as such an impactful move for Texas Tech is what you alluded to. Their biggest weakness last year was trench play on the defensive line. I mean, Abilene Christian walked into Lubbock and put up 51. That's unacceptable defensively. But the reason they felt is they didn't have the personnel, and now they've gone out and attack this weakness in a huge way in the portal, Chris. And I think this is what the transfer portal's for. If you're a program asking yourself, if you're a fan of a program asking, how should we use the portal? What's the best way to build a roster and having a strong culture? This is what I'm talking about, where you go out and have a maximum investment. We've talked about the NIL efforts ratcheting up over the last several months for Texas Tech. Have the ability to go out and get a guy who's considering UCLA, who's frankly not as big of a football brand, in my view, as Texas Tech, but is in the Big 10, and that carries a lot of cachet, and you're going toe-to-toe with Texas? Texas Tech isn't supposed to get players from Texas. But all these investments and the all-in mentality emulating from Lubbock right now, to me, is just continuing to manifest itself with off-season results like this. And to your point, now you have to go on the field and you've got to put it out there. And you've got to be able to back all of it up. But step one to getting there is suddenly making Longhorn fans maybe turn their heads and go, we're going after that guy? I mean, sure, our defensive line is already great, but Texas was going after that guy. If Texas is in the fold, Texas Tech isn't supposed to be able to get a guy, but that's why this is, again, on two fronts, just such a huge piece of news for the Red Raiders and Joey McGuire.
the oil and gas business industry has been very good to a lot of Red Raiders, and I think that you are, because I mean I'm sitting there thinking, like, you added a second team All Big 12 defensive tackle in Lee Hunter, who is, I think, 6'4", 320, who I was like maybe one of the most excited about, and it's just been crazy that you've added so much via the portal that you're like trying to figure out, okay, which one will be the best, or which one do I like better, or whatever. And you didn't lose anybody of your nucleus of your current team, and that's what's fun, is that now it allows for your youth to kind of continue to grow and learn under some elite playmakers. But you're right, and there will be plenty of people that will point and laugh if Texas Tech doesn't win the Big 12 championship or whatever. But wouldn't you rather have tried than not try at all? I mean, that's what are we doing if you're not willing to try and all those things? And so many intangibles have to come together. But I just, because the thing about a guy like Bailey is he's like a great shot blocker in college basketball. How many shots does a great shot blocker discourage from even being taken? How many does he alter? And there's some things that don't show up in the stats, because if you only look at sacks or pressures or QB hits, how many throws are discouraged? How many throws are sped up? How many throws are, or how much do they have to keep tight ends in now, or leaving their backs in to chip and all that? And so you schematically, it's a lot of fun to think about, because you've made instantly everything around your defense just a bit better with this addition. And it was already pretty good anyways, based on what you had added.
David Bailey last year was Pro Football Focus's 9th highest graded edge player in the country. That includes FBS and FCS individual rankings. He has a pass rush grade of over 93. Now, run defense per PFF is not his greatest strength, but to your point, Chris, you're in a Big 12 conference with a lot of really good quarterbacks, with plenty of capable passing attacks all over the field, or all over the conference rather, who throw the ball all over the field. You have to be able to harass those guys. If you want to take a step forward defensively, that's where it has to start. This is, if you were in the Big 10, I'd say you need more, like those big interior guys, and you need to have some really good linebackers. No, I think in the Big 12 in particular, you have to be able to get after the quarterback if you want to be able to push for a conference championship. And I think the teams that were playing in the conference title game last year, Arizona State and Iowa State, were good, but also look at the quarterback play that they had. You can get whoever you want in the secondary. If you can't pressure a quarterback, none of it matters. And that should not, as long as everybody stays healthy, be a problem for Texas Tech this fall.
Finally. You weren't able to replace Tyree Wilson, who was the 7th pick in the draft a couple of years ago. And he, when you had him, it was amazing how much, everybody's job was a bit easier because of how much attention he commanded. And now you've sprinkled so many different pieces in here. It should be a lot of fun for Sheil Wood, who came over from the University of Houston as the new defensive coordinator. And that's the other thing, man. You're replacing your coordinators here too, one of which you decided to do, and the other one, because he's now the head coach at Florida Atlantic on the offensive side, is Zach Kitley. So we don't want to overlook that. But when you add pieces like this, it just instantly makes so much of your football team just that much better. Or hey, you've got this larger margin for error here, because at quarterback, whether he's trying to run or scramble or extend a play, doesn't have near the time that he thought he did.
Yeah, good time to be a Red Raiders fan right now. It's just April. I'd rather be excited in April than worried about what the season is going to bring. It tends to be in college football, the teams that and fan bases that are excited, they tend to do better than the ones that are like, oh, I don't know if it's going to be any good this year. So to your point, maybe it doesn't work out for Texas Tech. I'd rather take a shot than just sit idly by. Chris Level, Locked On Texas Tech, is not sitting idly by over covering the Red Raiders. We appreciate you stopping by. And which team in red feels better right now, Texas Tech or USC? I got to tell you, it's kind of hard to pick. First, this episode brought to you by Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you're going to get any money back, and then waiting, wondering, and worrying some more. Now, Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day. An expert who will find you every deduction possible, file every form, every investment, everything with 100% accuracy. Also, you can get the most money back guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now this is Taxes. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available TurboTax Live Full Service. Real-time updates only in the iOS mobile app. See guaranteed details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. TurboTax.com. So another day and another USC commit in the 2026 class. This is becoming a borderline daily occurrence. Do you realize how outside the norm USC is right now? They have 20 players committed for 2026. 20. 2-0. The next highest of the classes that are inside the top 10 is 14. Now that's Kansas. And maybe you hear that and say, wait, Kansas has a top 10 class? None of this means anything. I mean, this could all change a bit. Yeah, this could change a bunch. Here's the difference. The recruiting potential of USC dwarfs the recruiting potential of Kansas, not just because of what's in the backyard. USC's in the Big 10, Kansas in the Big 12. The dollars are a little bit more substantial over there in Los Angeles, though. I love seeing Lance Leipold maybe push for a top 10 class. Certainly a top 20 class would be a welcome sight for the Jayhawks. But keeping this on USC, they have the number one class in the country according to 24/7 Sports. And yes, some of that is due to the fact that they just have way more players than everybody else. The number two class in the country is Clemson, who's at 13 commits. And USC is at 20, which is an insane number. Last year, Oregon pulled in a top 5, top 10 recruiting class. They had 19 players in the 2025 cycle. 19. USC's sitting at 20 now. By the way, they're not done. Their latest commitment is Cohen Brown, a 3-star wide receiver who was looking at Baylor and Arkansas most heavily. USC wins out in that battle. And look, is that a world-beating recruit who changes the landscape? But you never know which guys that don't have a bunch of stars next to their name are going to turn out to be really good or solid players. But you sure do give yourself a much better chance of finding those guys when you just keep finding them. You just keep getting them to commit to your school. The last two guys I've talked about on the show are actually among the lowest rated recruits in the class of 2026. They also they didn't slip into flipping Tomohini Topui, a defensive lineman from Oregon. It looks like they'll have to work to keep him committed, but guess what? They got him to flip. A defensive lineman flipped away from former defensive coordinator Dan Lanning over at Oregon. In the last couple of years, Oregon USC recruiting battles have been incredibly commonplace. They are only going to become more frequent, it seems, in the coming years. Now, in past seasons, Oregon's tended to have the advantage with defensive players, but this is a guy who I've mentioned before and will mention here again. When they got Jakeem Stewart to go to USC, 5-star defensive lineman who does not look like a freshman whatsoever, and I imagine plays in some capacity for the Trojans this year. When that happened, that made me turn my head and go, it's one thing when Lincoln Riley gets a quarterback. They flipped Jonas Williams from Oregon. The Ducks are going after Ryder Lyons and Jared Curtis, of course, but still, Williams a really talented quarterback. And they flipped Jakeem Stewart, and you go, well, wait a minute, that's the side of the ball that Lanning specializes in. He's got Tosh Lupoy on his staff, who is a world-renowned recruiter, especially when it comes to defensive linemen. Typically, you'd think, in theory, Oregon wants to go get a defensive lineman. They go out and get him. So when he flipped to USC, I turned my head and thought, let's keep an eye on that. Then they go out and get Chad Bowden from Notre Dame to come be their general manager. That is proving to be an inflection point in USC recruiting, because this is indeed a similar position to what they were in a year ago. But is it exactly the same? No, I don't think they had 20 players committed a season ago. And yeah, Isaiah Gibson and Justice Terry ended up flipping away. Big 5-star defensive lineman. Gibson went to Georgia. Terry is now over at Texas. But the GM factor can't be overlooked. The NIL commitments cannot be overlooked. because the results are here. They just continue to roll in time and time and time again. And by the way, here's the interesting thing. Two notes on this USC recruiting surge. They might not have their highest rated player in the country yet, or in their class rather, because there are guys out there across the country who are still considering USC. I'm talking about Ryder Lyons, 5-star quarterback who's looking at BYU, Oregon, Michigan, and USC. And I'm thinking about Brandon Arrington, a 5-star athlete who's probably a defensive back. Maybe he's a receiver. Maybe he's a two-way sort of guy, Travis Hunter type. Like maybe he's Travis Hunter light is kind of the scouting report on him. Those are two guys that are heavily considering USC. So that's the first thing I look at is, hey, they might not have their most prized recruit yet, and they are beating everybody right now. Recruiting's a long season. You got to keep it up through April and May and June and July. But by August, your class is mostly set. So I know that people that are anti-USC want to throw out, well, it's early. They did this last year, all this sort of stuff. Okay, yes, it's still early. Plenty of things can change. As I've said before, USC looks to have given themselves a floor of a top 10 class. That's the way it seems to me. I would be shocked if USC's recruiting class for the 2026 cycle falls outside of the top 10 at any point in time. I would be really, really surprised. So at some point, it does reach, hey, this is just what the class is. You know, if you say that in February, all right, it's February, long way to go. We are encroaching 1 week gone, or 1 week is basically gone in the month of April. Well, that's closer than we were in February. And you just keep inching along, and you flipped a couple guys from Oregon, and you're looking at these big recruits over here. So that's the first thing I think. But here's the second thing, though. How big does this class get? Are they just going to go? Do they feel really good about the players they have and the ability to keep them committed to USC? Are they going to be able to just say, hey, we have these guys, and we might lose 2, maybe 3, but nothing more than that. So we can just go big game hunting now. We can put all of our time, energy, and dollars into Ryder Lyons and Brandon Arrington or whatever other high-profile recruit they're going after. And right now, just remember this particular take of mine. Xavier Griffin is their highest-rated commit. He is a 5-star linebacker who was crystal balled to Georgia. He committed to USC instead. He's been committed for several months now. I won't be surprised if he is not the highest rated guy or the biggest name that USC gets in this 2026 class. They are trying to generate the buzz, ratchet up the heat, and it's working. It's working. How could you not feel good about this if you're a USC fan? But if you're looking at how big this class could get, USC is sitting at 20 players right now. Yeah, guys could decommit, but who's to say USC doesn't have 7 to 10 more players in their back pocket or the ability to go out and get those guys? Because remember, they had a bunch of transfer departures this past year. They weren't upset about all of them. I'm sure there are a couple they would have liked to have kept around, but overall, they're trying to do a little bit of a miniature reset, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. That's why I'm watching a guy like Brandon Arrington, who might be a stud corner or a receiver, you never know, or both. Or the fact that they have Xavier Griffin at linebacker, or the fact that they got Jakeem Stewart last cycle, or the fact that they have a pretty heavily loaded defensive line haul. They are sitting currently at 4 defensive linemen already in this 2026 class. So I'm fascinated to see how this all plays out, because USC has not been recruiting the way they're fully capable of. Now it looks like they are. They have to finish the deal, but this is how you'd want to start. There is no team that is recruiting better in college football right now than the USC Trojans, whether you like that or not. Will it continue? We'll continue to monitor, because it's recruiting season and portal season is about to roll around. And I got so excited. I'm so fired up about this. I just whacked my hand on the desk and shook the camera here on YouTube. That is what's going on and why this keeps coming up on the show, because USC recruiting to its full potential is something everyone has to be aware of. That's just a fact of life. Is Justin Wilcox being around at Cal in the ACC, of course, a fact of life forever? Maybe not. First, this episode brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment? It's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. All-in-one convenience is what they're all about. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year, monarchmoney.com. Are we about to have a coaching vacancy in Berkeley? Ron Rivera is getting involved now as the GM of California football. What on earth is going on? Thomas Dunn, right for California, is here to discuss just that, because I'm getting similar vibes of what just happened across the way in Palo Alto at Stanford. Thomas, you have a high-profile former NFL kind of legend coming in to be the GM. And for those of you who don't know, yes, that Ron Rivera is the general manager of Cal football, just like Andrew Luck is the general manager over at Stanford. And these are ACC schools, of course, because how could we forget to mention that? Yes. But that's where we're at. And so I hear reports of they're holding NIL dollars and they're demanding they want Ron Rivera to take control. Is this a Justin Wilcox problem and we're about to have a coaching vacancy, or he's on the hot seat, or what exactly is going on here?
So I think a lot of what has transpired to this point is coming from Ross Dellinger's, picking up of the story of all this right now. And I think the big thing is he's mostly right. He's just about at the finish line in terms of this whole setting up the context and saying, here's what Ron Rivera does and what he's going to do for this program. The one thing that he is missing, and the one reason why this whole movement has started both online and in the actual community on campus itself, is because this is more of a ploy for not wanting the athletic director to be in control of football. So the whole shebang is, it's not about Stanford. It's not about X school or Y school or any of that. It's about Cal only, and looking inward and determining who gets control of the football program. And everyone wants Ron Rivera to get said control of the football program because they do not trust the athletic director, who has made a myriad of issues, both in terms of, we'll just say, coaching decisions, but also in terms of how he's carried the athletic department and certain events that have taken place under his leadership.
Do you think there is any component of that frustration amongst the donors and fan base with regards to how the athletic director has been running things there in Berkeley? Do you think any of that has to deal with the fact that Justin Wilcox is still the head coach after 8 years of pretty average, middling results and a 35% win percentage in conference play?
I mean, it'll always play a role in the back of the mind, but I think most people are like, it is what it is, and until it bottoms out, we're stuck. It is like, Justin Wilcox is the coach of Cal football. That's okay. It happens. That's the situation that they're in. They'll complain about it, but there's nothing realistically they can do about it just because of the buyout numbers and all that. But beyond that, and this is where I like to preface that we're getting into a very serious set of serious situations, is that Jim Knowlton has presided over the Cal swimming abuse scandal that has been swept under the rug at campus. So it's just a lot of these little things. You hire Mark Fox as the head coach of men's basketball, and he's hired a lot of coaches that just quite frankly have not won. The men's soccer program's kind of okay. Volleyball program has floundered. So it's a lot of things that have just stacked up, and a lot of people get rubbed the wrong way because of the athletic director and how he handles things both in person and now the general outlook of Cal athletics is. So when we take a big step back and you look at what the role of Ron Rivera, it's more of taking athletic director out instead of, we want Ron Rivera in amongst all these different styles of GM programming. So
if they're looking at the whole athletic department saying this isn't where we want it to be, and football is kind of, like you said, it's kind of what it is. That's the best way you can describe the Justin Wilcox era in Berkeley. For a program, by the way, I was talking about this with somebody recently. There was a time within my lifetime, by the way, everyone, in which Cal football was not just good. They came into the season ranked in the top 10. That was more recently than the last time Miami won a national championship. So I look at what this program has been and how they go forward in the ACC. obviously the travel is a lot more difficult in this conference, but I think the one upside, if you're the Bears and looking at the football program and setting what the expectations are, I don't think the new world ACC is any tougher than the old world Pac-12. And with where a lot of those programs were trending, I think it's slightly easier in some regards. That depends on how certain programs run. How does Louisville elevate? Does SMU sustain? Does FSU get back to where they were? I just think that there's an opportunity here. And I wonder, when you bring somebody in like Ron Rivera, if he, has a fresh perspective and at one point says, maybe sooner than someone else would, hey, we need a reset, we need a restart to help this program make the jump, because they're not a bottom dweller, but they're nowhere near the top.
Yeah, and I think part of that whole deal is the current reporting system as it is Ron reports to the chancellor of Cal. He doesn't report to the director of athletics like Justin Wilcox does. So that's currently something that the bureaucracy is going to have to figure out at some point if push comes to shove. But when it comes to other things, I know, Carolina Panthers fans and Washington Commanders fans are going to have feelings about Ron Rivera de facto running the football team, but he will help, scout recruits. He will help put together NIL packages. He will help put together even a little bit of a game plan, according to Justin Wilcox yesterday at spring football media availability. They're working in tandem with each other, and that's all fine and well, and I'm glad that they are right now. And the only part that we aren't really sure of right now is what happens when there's either an internal conflict or disagreement. How does that move up the chain? And do they move together? Do they, for lack of a better phrase, act like adults and say, okay, we're going to move together, we're going to work together, we're going to find solutions, or we're going to have to go up to our supervisors and say, well, get it fixed. Someone's got to be right here. So that's the one part that it's really raised into question. But so far, that's kind of the understanding of where Ron Rivera is placed on the totem pole, and it remains to be seen kind of how it takes shape come actual season time.
Do you get the sense that Rivera wanted to come back to his alma mater, of course, because he wanted a job in football, or because he wants to put his own imprint in there, or because he wants to help Justin Wilcox succeed? Because I think you can have a lot of different motivating factors, and you look at a guy like Andrew Luck over at Stanford, and very clearly his motivation was, I want to come and put this program in a new direction. I want to put my own stamp of approval on everything that happens here. Do you get the sense at all that could be where Ron Rivera's head is at, and that could lead to Justin Wilcox's seat heating up more than it might otherwise if Rivera wasn't there one day? Or do you think he is in a collaborative mindset of, I want this program to succeed and I want to help Justin Wilcox thrive?
I believe it's more of the latter. And I think Ron Rivera and his wife, Stephanie, they've really been enthralled in the community ever since he's been in the NFL. They still love Cal. They bleed Cal. They're supporting other sports as they have their own success. And I think that's really the big thing is, in our case, with our own alma maters, we want them to succeed. We represent them. We carry the weight on our shoulders saying, yeah, we're from X school or Y school. In our case, breaking news to everyone, the Santa Clara Broncos. We wear the Broncos on our shoulders every single day. But the bigger point is that he wants the program to succeed, regardless of who's out there. He's going to give Justin, I don't want to say clean slate, but he's going to give him a chance. He's going to say, look, I'm going to put in my influence. I'm going to put in my direction. I think if we work together, we can find the best version of Cal football that we found in just about a decade. So that's really what I'm looking at right now. Ron is someone who's going to be all in for the university, all in for the athletic department, all in for the team. It's just a matter of Justin can rise to the occasion and run with them, get those 8+ wins on a season, and then keep it going. Because obviously Cal fans want the team to win. It doesn't matter who it is. They want to win. If that's Justin in year 9, that's Justin in year 9. If that's a new coach in 3 years, that's a new coach in 3 years. The general gist is win football games, find a way to win football games, and they believe that Ron Rivera is the guy to help lead to win on the margins, get the right talent in, and eventually have a team that wins.
Tell you what I'm all in for. Football gossip. That's what I'm all in for here on the show. Thomas Dunn, WriteForCalifornia.com. Appreciate everyone listening. I will see you next time, and until then, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.